All right, welcome back to the War Room. I'm back here with Carson again, ready to talk some motocross, and with special guest Alec. Alec, how are you, brother?
Good, man, brother. Cannot complain. Good week, good weekend. No
Yep.
complaints from this end.
Yeah, and we've had a 3-week break from motocross. Somewhat sadly, but honestly, good for the riders with the fact that they have to go so much longer now with the SMX playoff and whatnot. But a lot can happen in 3 weeks. All three of us are in the Houston area. We're all dodging a hurricane, and surviving off of generators or in-laws' houses in the middle of the country, 3 hours away. We're just making do with what we can. But despite the hurricane, there's a ton of breaking news within the industry that was going on while all of us were just trying to see if we can get a signal on our cell phones. So I'm going to rattle off real quick, and then I'm going to start with Carson and go to you, Alec, and kind of figure out which of these, which there's a lot to pick from, you have to pick two, kind of is what you're most excited about, what you've got your eyes looking towards when we go to Unadilla this weekend, the first race back after the 3-week break. So rattle it off. First off, Ken Roxon is back for Unadilla this weekend, and along with that, he'll be racing the finale. Either at Budds Creek or is it Spring Creek? I think it's Budds Creek. That's the finale. No. It's Ironman. That's the finale.
Ironman finale. Yeah.
Yes. He's racing that on a 250. That kind of made me go, what? Bradley Moroff, Colt Nichols is back, and he's with a new team of Suzuki after leaving Beta, kind of unexpectedly. But looking more into it kind of makes sense. We can break that down a little bit later. Eli Tomac is back, but it's going to be Budds Creek. It's not going to be Unadilla. He just got back on the turn tracks and everything like that. But on the other side of the Star Racing Yamaha 450 team, Cooper Webb will be back for Unadilla. So we will see him suit up for the first time in over 3 months, give or take, at Unadilla this weekend. Along with that, Garrett Marchbanks will also be back, I believe, for Unadilla. I don't think he's necessarily set in stone, but I think it's widely agreed upon he's going to be back for Unadilla. And he'll be back leaving the Club MX 450 team to go to the Pro Circuit 250 team, racing on the Cowie over there amongst Ty Masterpool, Levi Kitchen, etc. Kind of an unexpected departure from Club MX a little bit early, but we can talk about that later if we want to. And then this one, I just saw on Twitter about 20 minutes before we hopped on, just like Carson and I on the last episode got the breaking news at Jet 20 minutes before we hopped on. Thank goodness. Shane McElrath and HEB Suzuki looking to part ways with Colt's interests. I don't think it necessarily has to do with anything with Colt entering the Suzuki squad, the Twisted T HEB Suzuki team. But it just so happens that with the entrance of Colt, we have the departure of Shane McElrath. And it looks like that Shane might be doing a last-minute deal with Mad Parts Kawasaki to be able to race at Unadilla and try to work his way into maybe the SMX playoff. But, guys, of those, 6 different things we got going on here. I think there's maybe even some other stuff that may have popped off. That was just what caught my board. Karsten, which of these are you most excited about or most maybe even concerned about?
Well, I don't know about concerned, but I'm pretty amped up for Ken on the 250. I think that's going to be badass, dude.
Really?
I'm hoping for one of two things. He goes out there and absolutely cooks everybody, just dominates, which I think is a good chance, or we just get some good battles. And I think both those things have a high possibility. I hope Ken is taking it seriously, and he's practicing a little bit on the 250, getting back on the groove of, riding the bike. Because it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same as the 450. He's not going to be able to just, rail it around the corners as easily. He's going to have to really dial it in and get used to having less power. And I would guess that the Suzuki 250 is not the most competitive, but he's solid. So I think that's going to be badass. I'm stoked for that.
Well, and this is what you touched on this, but in a different way. I mean, Alec, I want your take on this in regards to Ken in particular. With him doing this 250 race finale, is he taking stuff seriously right now? I mean, because he's, in my opinion, I think he is one of the top 3 to win the SMX playoff and win $1 million, right? I mean, he came up just a couple points short to Jet. It literally came down to the last lap. I mean, if he made the pass, he would have won the whole dadgum thing. Got second overall, but his style really pertains well to those hybrid tracks as we saw. And I will also say, if we're talking about him going back to the 250s, I get it could be fun, But as you pointed out, Karsten, it's a different riding style. You're looking at one where you have to stay on the high revs, whereas 450s nowadays, you have so much power. It's so much more about throttle control. You listen to Kenny ride his 450 around any of his practice tracks, and you can hardly hear the throttle because he's just rolling through the corners at high speed. So do you think this is just a for funsies for him? And does it make sense to you?
Man, I really think, look, Kenny's getting old. He's towards the tail end of his career. Not to say he's looking or he's fishing to do something to be the top of the storyline, but riding a 250, you can't sit in some sections. Now, these guys are pushing the limits, I mean, at every moment. So to say, yeah, he's too old to do it, no. But like I said, man, it takes a lot more out of you to ride the 250. I ride a 250. I've ridden 450s, and just the 450. Man, I sit through the corner, seat bounce jumps. The 250, I've got to choose the outside line, and I got to stay a gear lower, or I got to be on the clutch. And I feel like it's more intuitive. Now, no discredit to the guys riding the 450s, because it's a whole nother thing. But it is, like I said, really, I'm not worried about him. Kenny's a great rider, but he is at the tail end. And not to say he's not fit, but it is a lot harder, I think, to ride the 250 in a sense.
Would you say you almost have to like bulldog it a little bit more, and you're standing up more, maybe in the corner sometimes, right. Or just really more in the attack position more often?
Yeah, so I would say coming in, especially into a corner, those inside lines, or even any line, deep rut, foot pegs dragging, you don't get the drive in the rut, you can't make up for it on the face or coming out of the corner as much as you can on the 450. So I feel there's a little bit more room in the 450 because you can, drop a gear if it is bogging, or, you scraping foot pegs, drop a gear and still get the speed to do the jump. Now, I'm not saying Kenny is not aware of that. It's been a while since he's been on a 250. But then again, he was one of the best 250 riders. So like something like that doesn't leave you. So I'm not worried about it, but that is definitely something that I think about seeing when he announced that he's going to be on the 250.
I also wonder if he just wants to be on a lighter bike in a race so we can just throw some fat whips. I don't know what he's going for, quite honestly. Yeah. It's Kenny. We kind of really never know, but we do know that he's got one of the most beautiful riding styles on a dirt bike, and that does really get shown off when he's on a lighter bike as well. So I think it'll be exciting. Whether or not it makes sense is another thing, and I don't think Kenny's maybe necessarily looking to make sense. I think he's, just having fun. He's just vibing right now.
Dude, that's so valid. Like, why is anybody caring about if he's trying to make sense or not? Maybe he wants to not make sense. Maybe that's what he's going for.
I mean, the dude is a wild German who is one of the most freak athletes I've ever seen. He still can't even bend his wrist all the way back 90 degrees. Most of the time has to do push-ups on his fists. Despite the doctors telling him not to, though, 3 weeks ago, he literally forced his wrist to bend with excruciating pain just to do push-ups. And then he commented, he says, I did this and forced it to happen. I'm just going to see if forcing it to do this will make it better, despite the pain. So I'm just like, dude, you're 3 weeks out from returning, and you're just going to give it a whirl. Okay, makes sense. I mean, the dude's a German metalhead on top of that. So I mean, it's just a different level of just craziness with him, and that's why we all love him. But speaking of craziness, I mean, like I said, lots of 5 other different points to pick from here. Alec, what else kind of are you most excited about or shocked you the most of these other breaking news panels here?
Man, I really think the Marchbanks situation. I remember, was it 2020, 2021, maybe a couple years back, he was already on the PC team, got let go, and then I just remember him cleaning out McAdoo. Now, people can say what they will about it. It kind of turned me off of. There's some hard feelings, and I don't know how the contract ended. I don't know what happened, but I think it's good that he's back. He obviously showed he was upset he left, and if that's what the confidence he needs, he's definitely a top 5 guy, and he could come out, this coming weekend and and do just that. So, is he a bike away from a podium? We just have to see. So, looking forward to it. But he's great on a dirt bike. So, like I said, I mean, if he's a bike away, then he'll have his opportunity to show that.
Yeah, for sure. And his contract goes through 2025. So this is basically just, in a way, it's almost just the best thing that could have happened to him, with the fact that Cowie was able to step up and give him that extra bike. Well, mainly because freaking half their team's in the hospital right now, as usual, for Pro Circuit Kawasaki. But I guess with all the extra gear laying around, they're like, well, let's just take him a half a year early, and let's go ahead and get his program started with us sooner. And that way they'll be going into 2025 with, all their settings dialed, hopefully, at least for the outdoor side of things. They're not going to get the Supercross testing in until, late fall when boot camp starts up again. But, any kind of head start you can get, especially for someone that's as good at outdoors as March Bakes can be, I think it's going to help a ton. But yeah, definitely a weird situation with going back to someone you broke up with. That's for sure. Now, I want to get your guys' take on this. Is, for me, y'all know I'm a diehard Colt 45 fan, and Colt Nichols' journey over the last, I'd say 2 years, especially. And with that, you have to lump in the 3 years as well, because he had a whole almost year and a half from that, from a injury, to where he basically went from being one of the top 250 guys who won a championship in 21 to nowhere for a year and a half, and then randomly gets a fill-in ride that from its get-go was just like, look, you are literally just here to hold a spot until one of the Lawrence brothers gets up here. Like, straight up, it's Supercross only, but go ball out, have fun on the best bike that there is right now for the most part, even though it's very temperamental. And we know you're going to spend half the season trying to work the demons out of it to get it to not buck you off in the corners. But aside from that, have fun and then see you, because Jed or Hunter or both are coming through next year. And we saw that play out. Then he gets the offer from Beta. And everything we were hearing from him on the first part of it was looking great. Super happy to be riding for it, and to be one of the guys that can kind of pioneer. And he kept just saying how he really felt like this long-term deal is going to be working. He'd have patience. And then reports come out of, the Beta bikes are bucking people off like a Bronco in the whoop sections. And for whatever reason, the Italians went with a steel frame. That may have something to do with it. But anywho, so basically, Colt gets hurt before round one of Anaheim, misses basically the first half of the season. And all that's going on, his teammate, Benny Bloss, starts out rough, but all of a sudden they start able to consistently crank out some top tens by the time Colt comes back. And then Colt's just basically all the progress that Benny went through working out on the bike. Colt doesn't have any of that. And I think he got more and more frustrated. But now he severed ties with Beta, and now he's going to Suzuki and going back from the steel frame to the aluminum frame. So, Alec, you may be able to talk about this transition way better than I can. I think just looking at someone like Chase Sexton and his journey in the last year, it can tell you all kinds of differences that go on between, going from the steel frame to the aluminum frame or vice versa. I mean, you think about Malcolm Stewart 3 years ago as well, similar deals, or Aaron Plessinger as well. Sometimes it can work, sometimes it can not. Are you thinking that this move for Colt Nichols going back to the aluminum frame of the Suzuki, despite the kickstart and the technology of the 2012 Suzuki being just on its last leg, do you think it's the best move for Colt? Do you think this is his long-term home, or do you think this is just a little filler and to see if he can get another factory ride later?
Yeah, so as a fan of Colt, I would like to see him land somewhere and not miss the runway. Whether that's whatever his goals are, maybe the top 10 guy, top 5 guy, podium guy, or win the championship. I hope that he hits those goals and we continue to see him race. To touch on the aluminum frame versus the steel frame, I saw a post by Honda today, and they were talking about how the Lawrence brothers had patched their frames with aluminum plates. So, up down by the swing arm, up towards the forks, like they're just adding plates here and there because they just weren't happy with it. Now, these guys, it takes a lot for them to to be happy with a bike. We hear it in press conferences. We see it chase over the front end, and that Honda definitely is at least the 24, the physics of it. I mean, it wants to throw you over the bars, but that's also, I mean, what I've heard is how you have to ride the 450 Honda. I've got a 250 Honda, and it's a little bit the same. Now, it's granted it's half the bike, but you still have to, it helps you out to ride over the front end, because that thing, it'll beat you up if you're not. And like I said, you hear that from a lot of guys with a lot of different bikes. You hear it with either with Chase coming from the 23 aluminum, and then going back to the steel on the KTM, and it seemed unsure. Obviously had a hell of a race at Hangtown, and then kept trying to find that over and over again. But tracks change. It's different weekends. It's different races. It's different settings. So to say maybe the frame is the worry, I don't. I feel like you can make up for the frame in suspension settings.
So do you feel like from him, obviously he's pretty much the only bike in his career, to my knowledge, that he was on a steel frame was the Beta. And you want to talk about kind of like the worst scenario for you to jump into and try to make work on the get-go. It's an all-new bike. They're making their own. Actually, I think they were using someone else's suspension, but they're integrating it into their own new frame. And it's a different kind of frame, different material. You're going from aluminum for your 250 career, and then the first year of your 450 to steel, which you've never done before. And like I said, so many different variables, right? So do you think that him going back to the aluminum frame with the Suzuki, even though the Suzuki is a different bike, but going back to that Japanese platform, do you think that's going to be feeling more like home for him? Do you think he'll be able to kind of get up to speed quicker? I mean, because this is the guy that we saw last year take was it Mad Parts Kawasaki or someone all I know is it had something to do with somebody from Swamp Moto. He borrowed a Kawasaki 450, pretty much almost dead stock, and did a suspension swap on it, I think, and put that sucker P10 back-to-back motos at, was it Unadilla last year? Or no, it was Washougal. I think it might have been Washougal. I can't remember. But, one of the nationals last year. Obviously, we know he's one of the best test riders, but do you just think him getting back on that aluminum frame will just feel like home to him?
I think it's familiar, and these guys are, like I said, always chasing something every weekend. And if you don't have something at least in your head that you think or you can fall back on, that makes that really tough. So during the week, the prep, if you're not comfortable, you can't go fast. And these guys are, like I said, just trying to find comfortability, and whether that in his head is the other frame, then so be it. If he thinks he feels better, if he does feel better, then I mean, who am I to say? I'm not out there every Saturday going wide open like that, racing for championships. So, I'd take his word for it. So if he's happy there, then, and if these guys hold bias to one style of frame, then, I kind of listen to what they say, because that's not my job.
Yeah. And, I think you hit it right on the head with pretty much everyone in the sports chasing something. And, no pun intended, but Chase Sexton, last motocross season, that's kind of the prime example of when your situations change. And even if the bike doesn't, all of a sudden the bike could act differently, right? Like basically, Jet does all of his testing and everything, because one, he has the extra time because his season wrapped up pretty much early with the 250 whole deal. And, Chase basically just says, you know what, I took Tomac down to the last round, last year, and he's not going to be in this thing because, he's got a bum Achilles. I just want to show up with what I had last year and just, have that comfortable feeling. Well, Jet shows up, and now because of Jet riding the way he was, Chase is riding a whole different level. It's pushing him to a different level. And I think the big thing last year was, Jet had the braced frame and Chase did not. And Chase, for the longest time, couldn't figure out why his setup wasn't feeling the same way it did last year. And it just came down to the end of the season. More and more interviews are coming out where he's just saying, yeah, I'm getting better, but I'm not realizing it because I got Jet in front of me. So the more I'm pushing this thing and trying to get comfortability while going even faster than I did last year, the bike's just behaving way different because it's just a different bike at that speed. So I think that's something to always look for is, when we see people in Chase's position, it's like, okay, how much is the bike change versus also the situation? Are they riding differently? has the competition changed? We saw Chase go through all kinds of demons last year, and it's always interesting to see who's battling setups and who's just kind of battling themselves. That's always how I like to look at it. But yeah, okay. So enough with the breaking news here. We got a lot that's been going on with the championships here. Karsten, which one do we want to start here first? We got a lot going on with the 250s and the 450s. One's a little tighter than the other, but not by too much right now, but still a lot of variables to happen with 3 to go.
Yeah, I think we can look at the 250s first. I'm really excited with how things are going. I know me and Alec were talking last weekend, and he's doesn't seem he's happy with the outcome we've got so far in the 250 championship, but that's all right. But I will say there are a lot of people that are coming up this year that I didn't expect to see in the hunt just about at all. So obviously Deegan's in the lead, but Hymas kind of poked his head for a little bit there and was like, I don't know, like I wouldn't say he was right there. You know, he was still, I think, maybe 30 or 40 points back at the closest. But like, you know, Deegan maybe falls in Moto 1, can't race Moto 2, and boom, Hymas could be in the lead in a situation like that. So that's, I mean, if you're at least 50 points out, you're close enough. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but obviously he's a little bit less in the championship now. But what are y'all's thoughts on that?
Man, I like Deegan. He's got fire. He brings something to the sport that, I mean, besides Jet when he was that age, you hadn't really seen. And he's got attitude, whether some people think it's good or some people think it's bad. I think it's good for the sport. And I like to see him do good just because he just hangs it out there, man. And there's guys like I was watching, and it just seems like guys aren't willing to do that. Like the Kitchen when they were scrubbing over that first jump right after the first corner. Dude, Deegan was like going to pass him midair, and Levi definitely had the inside. He could have pinched him off and pushed him out, but it's like it's refreshing to watch Hayden have this fire. And as much as he's not my favorite rider, you can't help but to like that part of it. And good on him, man. He fights hard. He goes down. He gets up. He gets a little nervous when Tom Vial's behind him, but he knows he can still pass him. He's crashed quite a bit with Tom behind him, but like I said, I mean, when he picks up those handlebars, he knows that he's gonna win the race. So
yeah, that's so true though too, because what was it, a couple weeks ago whenever he went down when he jumped and he ran over the lapper's bike that fell and he flew over the bars. I mean, no matter how hard he crashes, he's immediately up looking for the bike, straight back to it, ready to go. So
right, the only guy
points to the durability needed, right? I mean, people were dogging Sexton all of last year, but the one thing you can't take from him is the fact that I say it all the time on the show. Guys like Deegan, but especially Chase Sexton, are built like brick outhouses. They keep hitting the ground, and other riders that are more frail, it'd be done. They'd have a broken scapula or something like that, tibia, whatever, right? And with Chase to a slightly lesser extent, Hayden too. We've seen both of these guys, even over the course of this year, take all kinds of shots and hit the ground, and they just keep getting up, and that's what keeps you in there, right? And to Deegan's extent, you look at a lot of his wins from outdoors. He's hitting the ground leading and has to fight through another 5 people to get back and still win. What is it? Like at least a third of the races he's won, if not more, he was leading, crashed, got back up, and had to repass, right? At least for one of the 2 motos.
Yeah, I can't confirm or deny those stats, but it sounds pretty good. Yeah, he's and not just having to, fall and get back up, but he starts from pretty deep in the pack a lot of times on some of these too. And, for one reason or another, and he's catching up pretty good. But like I was saying, it does suck that Hymas had an injury and, what was it? He didn't finish the race, the second moto or something like that. And,
no, he didn't finish. That injury happened in the second moto. So he did good in the first moto, and then the second moto was no.
Yeah, but I think that shows a lot of promise for. It's tough to say with motocross because it doesn't transfer over quite as well to supercross. So we'll see how it goes. But Hymas is clearly showing that he's got a lot of endurance, and so that'll probably help in the Supercross season. But definitely for next motocross season, he's going to be someone to look out for, I think.
Well, and I have a question on Hymas. The dude has been doing pretty much I think since even round one of Supercross. I think he tore it right before, retore it right before round one or right after round one. But he's been doing it at a minimum 95% of this whole season between Supercross and Motocross with a retorn ACL that he spent a lot of last year repairing. And I 100% get why he's stuck in this long. One, because he's been doing freaking great. But two, it is a contract year for him. So that was a big factor in that as well. Do you guys see him potentially trying to get that finally fixed in this offseason and potentially miss a few rounds going, or potentially miss SMX, or at a minimum a few rounds into the next Supercross season? Or do you think he's just going to leave it be?
I don't know. I suppose it depends how bad it is right now, but
right. I think momentum's huge, and if he can carry that and not let that die out, then good on him. But also don't want to rush an injury. Look, he's still young. He's friends with Jet. He's friends with Hunter. He's friends with, arguably the top two guys in our sport right now, and he trains at their dog pound compound. And he's set himself up to be probably arguably in the best position. So I think if he's not 100%, I would take the time to heal, because but at the same time, it'd be tough to lose that momentum. Like you said, it's a contract year for him. I think he showed enough to HRC that he could definitely have a year contract next year, or maybe finish out his 250 career. And then, then maybe they part ways then. But I think it's too early for HRC to give up on this guy. Now it'd probably be.
And I don't even know who they would bring in to replace him. And like you said, he's even with basically losing a whole moto's worth of points from that injury before the last round, he's still beating Joe Shimoda, right? And look, I know this part of this has to do with typical Joe Shimoda, to where when the pressure's on, he's nowhere to be found, and then all of a sudden we get to the last three motos and he starts winning motos, and look, he's going to carry this in the next year, and we just keep repeating the cycle. Don't get me wrong, I love Joe Shimoda to death. It's just we were hoping this wouldn't be the case, especially outdoors, with how good he is outdoors this season, and it's kind of just repeating itself. Now, he's come on a little bit earlier in this season than he has in, I would say, last year and the years before, but it's still kind of the same kind of deal. He's let's see here, 80 points behind Deegan right now. He doesn't really have, unless Deegan has a catastrophe, he's really not in the title picture. And even with someone like Vial, he's not necessarily even going to touch him either, the next man up. So I think if Honda looks at Chance, I think it's worth having a serious conversation when the moto season's wrapped up on, hey, what about skipping SMX? As much as the money's there, let's give you that contract and let's get that need taken care of. And if that means we have to miss a round or two, or if that just means we have to race East Coast for Supercross, then so be it. It's one of those things that, you hear people like Jason Thomas who have had to race on that before. It's like anytime you have to dab that foot with that bad knee, it's excruciating. But it's kind of a weird position because he has all this momentum, and I haven't heard of a secured contract extension yet for him with HRC, but you have to think, he's still leading the standings with one good leg. Give it to him.
Right. Anywho. He's what, 3/4 of what he could be if he had one extra good limb. Who's to say he wouldn't be leading this championship by 80 points?
Yeah,
not me. Well, I would say Dean's the one that could say anything about it, because it's kind of just between. Those two are, when they're both on, they're on a different level. Like we've seen Vial kind of fall off the cliff a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I think that if he were to have to miss some time, missing the SMX playoff would make the most sense, just because I don't know why, but to me, it doesn't, maybe it's because it hasn't been around long enough yet, but it doesn't feel like it has as much weight as a Supercross championship or even a motocross championship. I don't know.
No, it doesn't have, I would still say the most prestigious title, and tell me if I'm wrong, I would still say the most prestigious title is the Supercross championship, but what I do think is absolutely beautiful about the SMX playoff is we're getting way more of the stars out to the outdoors by force because of the fact that basically both motos in a weekend of the 12 rounds of outdoors, or I think it's now 11, I think, count towards, the SMX playoff standings and you making the top 20 so you don't have to race at LCQ. Now all of a sudden all the stars are more frequently racing all the outdoors that they can, because if they don't, then somebody like a I don't know, not a John Short, but like a what's his name, like a Freddie Noren is going to stack top tens for 22 straight motos, and then all of a sudden he's taking that 19th spot away from someone like a Colt Nichols or a Benny Bloss or something like that, or even to a different extent, like if there's another guy that's a factory rider of the 250s, someone like Garrett Marchbanks, who's kind of split between 250s and 450s, those guys are very susceptible to getting their spot stolen from these outdoors rounds. So what I love about the SMX playoff, the championship, I think will have more weight as it continues to run. But I think with the amount of money that's on the line for just being in the top 20 and being able to compete for that huge pot that gets divided up all the way through the top 20, it's very much, in my opinion, like brought back a lot more life into the outdoor series because we got the star power back, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and even like with a situation like with Tomac, where he's coming back with 2 rounds left, like if they didn't have the SMX playoff, he would probably just miss those rounds and just come back in Supercross, take the extra time to heal up. I mean, I'm assuming he's coming back because he is ready, not because he, could use the extra time, but because he does feel good enough to come back. But yeah, we get, a couple rounds with almost all the main guys healthy here at the end, and definitely more exciting racing. Obviously not for a championship for them, but
I think
a lot of it's logging laps too to get the right setup for SMX, because SMX is so, we watched everyone with SMX last year thinking that their suspension setup was going to be, okay, let's take a Supercross setup and then loosen it, right? And it ended up being the opposite. Everyone had to, literally people were having to change everything on their bikes at the first round in Charlotte at that drag strip and go, oh crap, no, we need the outdoor setup and we just need to make that tighter. It was very much more of a motocross driven track setup than they expected. So, I think a lot of it with Kenny and Cooper and Eli is, yes, they need to just get back in race condition, but also they've got to get their setup dialed in too, because outdoors is your best. I mean, you've got to get your outdoor setup somewhat in ground zero before you can even start tweaking it.
Yeah. Well, and it could be totally different this year too. Like, who knows? Like, they're racing at different tracks, which it's not even like the track's really that much the same. They're, the dirt's coming in that weekend. So, it's always going to be different, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how
that's what makes it great, right? Like, I think what the other great thing about SMX, this is me derailing just a little bit, but I'm going to shut up in about 30 seconds. But I think the other great thing about SMX is these hybrid tracks that aren't, they're a higher grade than that of what we saw in the Monster Cup years ago. These hybrid tracks that they're making, I think, really do challenge both the rider and the mechanics to get their setups dialed in, and that does play a big factor and in success for these riders. But along with that, it's giving us variability, it's giving us parity, it's giving us crazy results. I mean, we saw Chase Sexton nail the setup, and that's along with the fact he was already a fantastic, like, still had the speed despite losing to Jet 22 times in a row, but just still was able to come out swinging and take the lead in round one purely because he got the setup dialed in right. So I love what SMX has done for the outdoor series, and also just for, I think, just the year-round competition. I think it, and also it finally got the guys at Motocross and Supercross to work together instead of competing, which was vital for the sport.
Right.
I mean, we used to see guys at the end of round 17 of Supercross saying, "We'll see you guys next year at Anaheim," and we're like, "We're racing in 2 weeks, brother. Where are you at?"
I definitely think pro motocross would have continued on that trajectory had super motocross not come into effect. I mean, we've seen it for years past. Tomac talking about signing Supercross only contracts, Webb talking about it. It's hard on these older guys, and call them older guys. They're not old, but it beats you up, and these guys would rather have that time to recover for the next prestigious title, and that title is the Supercross title. Now with Pro Motocross and Supercross now being tied together, it's like it's the championship, really. I think, back on your point earlier, is that eventually it will become the prestigious title because it takes you the entire year, not 8 months.
Yeah, almost like a triple crown, if you will. Like, if someone's able to get all 3 championships in 1 year, that'd be just insane.
Right.
Which Jet,
he kind of did. I mean, it was 250s, then outdoor.
Jet had a
but it carried over to the next year. Yeah, I don't know. It's like Jet did it, but like there's a year carryover. So
wait a minute, is this the year-long Triple Crown? And therefore, maybe like, what if it never comes together? Because it's like the full. It's like the macro Triple Crown.
Well, and like in like the actual Triple Crown for horses, when you get to that last leg of the Triple Crown, all of a sudden everyone starts throwing their best horses back in just to prevent it from happening, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, who knows?
Okay, I've successfully derailed the whole conversation. Karsten, please get us to the right direction. I'm sorry.
All right, let's bring it back around. Chase is winning, boys. It's Chase's for the taking.
Yep.
I thought maybe Jet gone. Hunter has got an opportunity here. But this last weekend was not good.
No.
Man, I think really it was Hunter's only shot. Not to discredit his riding, his talent, or what he can do on a dirt bike, but Jet's hurt. Chase's confidence was tarnished. To come in and be he had the chance to be that guy. Now, I don't think he threw it away. I think Chase just won a couple motos, and I think now Chase knows for a fact that there's nobody out there that can beat him. Because if you get Jet back on the course, Chase gets beat by him once. I think twice, maybe, or 2 weekends in a row, we might be back right there. But I really don't think with a healthy Jet and a Chase and Jet that Hunter, I definitely think if one goes down, he'll be in the mix. But to win the championship, I love that dude, but I really don't think he can pull it through.
Well, and I think we have to be slow to judge Hunter's long-term outlook, because we have to remind ourselves this is his rookie year on the 450 outdoors too, not just Supercross. And with that comes setup deals. Also with that, Jet was the only one of the two that did outdoor testing. And I don't know what the exact reason was why Hunter didn't do any outdoor testing, but Hunter was the one that just came and said, just give me what Jet has, and I'll roll with that, which was kind of weird because you would think it would have been the opposite. Jet would just run with the setup he had last year when he went 22-0, and that Hunter, with it being his first season on this 450 outdoors, would be the one doing the testing. No, it was flip-flop, which is kind of weird to me. But definitely what we're hearing from the Lawrence camp with Hunter specifically, especially these last 2 rounds, he's never been a guy that has stamina issues, with these last 2 rounds, the last one especially, huge stamina issues. And I would say I'm wondering how much of this is just getting exposed from Chase kind of having more clean air and just being able to run off, because a lot of the times the 3 were staying together because Jet was leading. He was kind of using Hunter as like a small gap between Chase and kind of towing him just a little bit. How Jet is always like the 3-second gap maintain king. Like he'll do that and then buzz off when he needs to. But Hunter did still have some second moto endurance issues in the first half of the season, but I would say not to the extent that we saw these last 2 motos. So he even said with himself that he's going to go get blood work done and do some other stuff. I'd be curious to what you guys think on, do you think that he actually has something he's dealing with, or is this more of a, well, hey, this is your first time doing a full 17 in Supercross and then now a full 22 in motocross, and then you still got 3 left, buddy. technically 6 because it's 2 races each weekend
Mhm.
for SMX as well. So do you guys think this is more of him just getting flat out burnt out from doing his first full season in all 3 different categories, or do you think that he's got some kind of health issue?
Health issue is a lot. I'm not sure he's got a health issue. I think that he's got a chase issue, where Chase is just faster, and he's, whenever you get past, it's really hard to pass back. And so I think Hunter's just getting past, getting the gap on him, and then just realizing he doesn't have that pace. And so he's just going to sit there and just have a little moment to himself, ride his pace, and just do his thing and come back next weekend. I think Hunter has a good realization that he doesn't have to be that guy today and right now and in this race and on this lap in this moment. Like he realizes what his limit is, and his limit is just not where Chase's is right now, which is to be fair, like you said, he's a rookie. Like this is on the 450. This is his rookie year. He's been riding for a while. He's obviously got a lot of experience. He's got championship level experience on the 250, but yeah, I think he's just not there yet. And everybody's obviously coming in when your brother went 22-0 the previous season. There's a lot of expectations, but like, it's not like he's doing bad. It's just he's not doing jet level right now.
100%. But I think to add to that, I will say, 2 things. One, and look, we're not going to hear anything unless it gets really, really bad and he can't race for whatever reason this next weekend. But when it comes to the health issue, but I will say, like, riders don't usually go public about saying that they're having some kind of stamina issue, right? Steve Mathis makes the joke all the time that if a rider actually says that they're tired in a post-race podium after losing to someone, that he almost wants to give them like a gift, because most of the time they say, "Oh no, I got arm pump," or "Oh, I was fighting the bike," or whatever. They never want to say "I got tired" and give the other guys something to feed off of, right? But I don't know if you guys saw the interview, but like before he left the last moto, before the 3-week break, he literally said, "There's something going on with my stamina. I don't feel right. I'm going to have to get some blood work done to get this looked into to just make sure I'm good." And even when riders have gone and done that, even like this season, for much worse conditions, RJ Hampshire was dealing with this through all of outdoors last season, and we didn't hear a word until his fall camp. So I don't think it's anything necessarily on fire, but I do think there might be something there with Hunter. But looking in towards the future, I mean, look, guys, it's the worst kept secret, but there's a man named Jorge Prado that's going to show up on a Cowway next season. Okay, and if I'm Hunter Lawrence and I just had the biggest window of opportunity with a Chase Sexton that's still trying to figure out his bike at the time that Jet was taken out of the running with his injury, right? Before this whole Chase went on a 7-moto run, I'm Hunter Lawrence. I have the red plate, right? My brother, who's the fastest man on 2 wheels right now outdoors, is out of the picture. And my nearest competition is Chase Sexton, and he's still trying to figure out the bike and his confidence, right? At least at that time, not anymore. But I mean, I'm looking at what's coming down the road, presumably, not taking into account any potential injury scares. I'm wondering if this is going to be Hunter's best opportunity to be able to win a championship, or maybe. I mean, I think it will end up being his best. I don't think you're gonna have a better window with what's coming to the line, but I wonder if it's going to be his only opportunity, because next year he may be in a spot like Ferrandis unless he massively takes some big leaps and bounds. When you got Jorge Prado, you've got Jet, and you got Chase, second year on the bike and everything like that. I mean, it just worries me a little bit. Like I said, it's his rookie year and everything. But sometimes you get a window and you can't control when that window is, right? So that's my only concern with Hunter.
Well, you got to think, man. What a hell of a rookie year, though. I mean, you've got your brother coming off of a flawless outdoor season. You've got a multi-time 250 championship and 450 championship in Cooper Webb, the likes of Eli Tomac. I mean, granted, they're not in here, but I mean, dude, even this coming in at the end of the season, I mean, he's a rookie facing these legends. I mean, to say that he hasn't done or has had a good season, I mean, would be an injustice to him. Now, toeing in with Chase, Chase is got to be one of the fittest guys out there in the paddock.
Yeah.
I mean, he's big, he's strong, he don't get tired. If anything, he gets faster late in the moto. And for somebody who may not, has just got arm pump or is just, squeezing the clutch or just gripping the bike real tight in those last 5 minutes, I mean, that's where Chase makes up most of his time, So I think Hunter needs to get his blood work back, see if there's any work that he can do for his health to get him there. And if it is just fitness and, and he's a good run more miles and things like that, then, maybe he just needs to do that. But I think for him, back on your point, it won't be his only opportunity to win a championship, because we see these crashes like Jet had. I mean, these guys get taken out or bike malfunction, shifter breaks off. You're down there shifting the bike with your hand with like Dungy. Things like this happens. So to say he won't be given another opportunity, I think is a stretch, but I feel like it may be more unlikely.
100%. Since I just went on a long ramble, I want to ask a question at this point, so that way, because I've derailed enough. But when we're talking about Chase a lot here, right? And there's one big question that's being debated right now that I think honestly the answer may lie in the middle, but it is the question of, look, we see Chase go on, I think it's a 7 moto straight run that we're seeing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And look, his ride in Hangtown was phenomenal, right? You're talking about worst to first. I haven't seen that since Bubba did it in 2003 Budds Creek. And he did that on a 125, right? This is on a 450. And, this is at Hangtown. I would say a track that can be more difficult to pass at times. Although the track prep was phenomenal for once in a while. I think Eli Tomac even tweeted after the race. He came out of his Twitter cave and randomly tweeted for the first time in 4 years, just talking about the track prep. That's just hilarious from Eli. Anywho, so I mean, great round at Hangtown, ups and downs from there, right? Couple close moto wins that he pulled a Chase and made a slight mistake, and that cost him the moto, but still battling with the other two of Hunter and Jet, and then goes to the last moto that Jet raced before he got hurt, beats Jet straight up, didn't get the overall, but still a lot of confidence you can carry from that. I think it was like a 3-1 or something like that. So at least he was able to beat Jet straight up, right? So we do have to take that into account. Multiple times he was able to beat Jet straight up, but still the question is, we've seen him go on this run and it seems like he's just unlocked himself in his outdoor setup and just in his outdoor riding. How much of what we've seen from this 7 moto run of Chase has to do with the bike? Because we're hearing that he has indeed found something with the bike and gotten way more comfortable. And how much of this has to do with his confidence of, hey, look, Jet's out of the picture. I don't have any Jet PTSD anymore. I'm just racing Hunter and I'm not as scared about him. I haven't had problems passing Hunter. How much of one of these two options do you think is a variable here? Or are we truly kind of in a 50-50 to where you see him more comfortable on the bike and he's able to send it a little more in a calculated fashion? What do you guys think?
I think it's the intersection of the two. The comfortability on the bike is sort of breeding the confidence in him, and knowing that Jet's not right there has got to help him at least a little bit, knowing that, he can be a little bit more loose and not be so tense. And yeah, he knows that if he makes a little mistake, he's not going to get passed immediately. And that allows him to ride a little more free potentially. So that's my thought.
I totally agree with you, man. If you trust in that bike, you can ride it as fast as you can go. If you can't, that means you're riding timid, you're riding tight. I think, especially for Hangtown, for instance. I mean, watching Chase ride that bike he got so out of shape so many times, but it never wavered his focus because he trusted that bike and knew what it was going to do. So like you said, man, I think it goes hand in hand. Those even off track, if something else happens and it's easy to lose that focus. But when you trust in the bike, you get on the bike, you know what the bike's going to do. You kind of just lock in. And I think Chase is just locked in.
He's in
So
a flow state.
my follow up on this question, now that we've seen it both indoors and outdoors to a larger sample size now, obviously a great part of both of these different seasons, indoors and out, we've had to see him battle a setup, work his way through, test. But kind of looking at now he's gotten into more and more of a flow state. Supercross was very much the tail end that he finally got in there. Literally, I think it really was just the last round that we saw him really start ripping. But do you think that Chase has found more stability on this steel frame with the KTM?
Tough to say if like he was.
Very tough to say.
I kept her at bay for as long as I could, and I lose focus for a second, and here she comes waddling through.
Well, I've got to lock my cat up in the bedroom. I just don't know what else I can do.
No, I mean, it's possible that he could have figured it out over there on the Honda, and there's got to be something to be said about like having the Lawrences. They're coming in and they're kind of taking over this program. I'm sure that they were getting a little bit more kind of like, hey, we're going to go down this direction with the bike. And so the team was focusing on what they wanted to do and maybe weren't putting as much R&D into things that Chase wanted to do. Who knows? Very possible. I would assume that's probably the vibe that was going on at the time. And so it might have been a little harder for him to sort of, like I said, take the bike in the direction that he wanted to go and find the things he wanted to when he's not like the guy, at KTM right now, he's the guy. And so the direction that he wants to take things, everybody I'm sure is going, okay, yeah, let's do it. Chase wants to do that. We'll do that. Okay. Chase didn't like that. Great. What does he want to do next? He wants to do this. Okay, cool. We'll do that. And, even if people are just more amped about helping you out, like you feel more inclined to ask for help and rely on the team. And so I'm sure there's a lot more of that going on. And so it's, like I said, maybe he would have figured that out and he would have gotten there had he been at Honda, but it might have taken a little bit longer. So yeah, I think that, but I think that being at this team made that happen faster. Not that it wouldn't have happened before, just happened faster.
I mean,
what do you think, Alex?
We can't say the KTM doesn't look good. I mean, AP's doing awesome on it. These guys look comfortable. They had their early season struggles, but so does every team. I mean, we haven't seen it really in Jet till this year, but that's kind of just that's something different. But I mean, we see these guys. That like you were saying earlier, you come from Supercross, you're fighting setups, but if you've got a team backing you and like you said, if you're the guy, that all of that attention and all that work's going to you and maybe AP. But I mean, I think Chase is getting comfortable there. He's finding a home. And then these performances are just going to only build into his confidence. And I think he's going to learn to love the bike. If he doesn't, then he's not going to win.
100%. Well, and what better teammate to have than AP for Chase right now, right? I mean, a lot, you have to think about part allocation for when you're doing setup changes and changing the bike and doing your testing and everything. AP's the guy that literally didn't even know what tires he was on and didn't even know if he was on the new frame or not going into Anaheim 1. He had to be informed by Jason Wiegand, I believe, or Wygant rather, that he's on Dunlop tires and that he did have the new frame, unlike the Husky guys at the time. But he's also been a guy that's been saying multiple times, he goes, they just give me new stuff and don't even tell me. I just ride it and give him feedback. Like he's very much a guy that can tailor his riding style to the bike versus I want this bike to tailor my riding style. at least from what we hear from both AP himself and then those that mechanic for him that say he's like one of the easiest guys to mechanic for. So when you're a guy like Chase that's trying to develop this bike for himself, but also just develop it further, especially with the rap that it got from Cooper Webb after his last year with him when he had all kinds of issues on that thing. And we were hearing reports that Cooper couldn't even get the forks he wanted and that Red Bull KTM was saying no. And it took him, almost threatening to leave even earlier than he did to get the forks that he wanted. And then he got a concussion, so it was irrelevant. All of a sudden now Chase kind of has full control and AP's just like, I don't care. Just paint it orange. Let me ride it, brother. I don't care. So I think it's a great pairing with those two. And I think they play with each other pretty well. I think they benefit each other pretty well. I mean, from Chase's point of view, he went from watching two young guys, especially Jet, two young guys that are in the lights class, especially Supercross season, while Chase is out there fighting demons, trying to fight Tomac and Cooper for a championship. He's got thousands of people line up outside of his trailer there for Jet and Hunter, and Jet's riding a scooter and playing rap music all around the trailer half the time. And it's just completely two different worlds, right? And I think him and AP get along a lot better. Not that they had beef or anything with him and Jet, or especially Hunter, but I do think that Chase needed a change of scenery along with it on this bike.
The vibes are right. That's what's going on.
They're right.
There's something to be said about the vibes being right, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do we what do we think about AP right now? Because I feel like he's on the cusp of being, a podium guy. He's really starting to break through right now, I feel like.
Well, he's been a podium guy outdoors, right? I think the question is, he's kind of been a third place guy consistently. I think he may have had, he had 1 second place at Hangtown. He's had two because the last moto, the first moto of or the moto right before the break, he got passed by Chase in the last lap again. So, but he's had a good amount of overall podiums, and his interview at Redbud, legendary. And him riding that fake deer on the podium like it was a horse, also legendary. He's just a legend. What else can you say? But yeah, in regards to his riding outdoors, especially, I'll even go back to indoors. We saw him finally break through the demons in indoors and get that win. I think it was at San Diego, I believe, when he was battling Kenny, I think. So that was fantastic to see. And now outdoors, we're seeing the consistency. And I've been really, really impressed with him. And I agree with you. I think he's just on the cusp of reaching, I think, his max potential outdoors, which is being a guy that can compete for wins. Maybe not all the time, but be that guy that can be that wild card, someone that, comes in and shakes something up on a weekend. What do you think, Alec? Do you think that this has been kind of his breakout outdoor season? And does it have to do with the improvements to the bike, or is this really more AP's development?
I think it's both. AP it's so easy to be a fan of his. He's just a great dude. He brings the energy, and it sucks to see him lose. But I definitely think, man, this year he's done great. I think he can carry that on. How great in Supercross or in SMX, I think we'll just have to wait and see, or maybe by the end of outdoors we can really get a gauge on it. But like I said, man, every time I watch him, I hold my breath. If he gets whole shot, he's out in front and leads 90% of the race, I'm holding my breath for the last 10% because AP's going down. Something's going to happen, unfortunately. That's always in the back of my mind when I see AP in the lead. Even watching the race with my dad, we're always like, uh-oh, what's going to happen to AP now? So, and a lot of that too is the circumstances and forgetting to stand up coming off the face of that off-camber jump. But, shit happens. So I think AP's got the attitude to get it done. And I think his heights haven't been hit yet. I think, he can really keep moving forward here.
Yeah, I think he continues to get better and better. And I think some of the wins that he's lost, like you said, are just silly mistakes here and there where he's in a position that he hasn't been in frequently.
Right.
And it's just some of those first time mistakes. I mean, heck, his most recent one in Moto 1 of the last moto before the break was just he missed a shift coming off of one of the turns, and he knew he was going to hold up Chase too much, so he actually kind of got out of his way while he was getting it refired too. He could have blocked Chase a little bit more, but
it looked like Chase was waiting for him to get the bike back going again so they could actually race too. Like it looked like Chase didn't want to pass him like that. He was like, "Come on, man, let's keep riding together."
Yep,
that was funny.
No, it was pretty. The funniest part, the funniest part of that weekend, there was two things. Number one, the fact that AP after that was literally slapping his helmet afterwards. That was pretty funny. The best part of the whole weekend was on the last lap of Moto 2, his pit board mechanic held out his last lap saying last lap, like free beer at finish or something like that. And then he pulls off after the finish line, and some fan or somebody pours beer into his helmet. And it was just like one of the most American things I've ever seen. It was awesome. And that's why he's a freaking national treasure and he should be protected at all costs. Okay?
Didn't Chase do an extra lap?
Yes. He swears that he saw the white flag. And I will say, I thought there was one more to go too, because but for a second, for Chase was much later. There was a guy in front of Chase that was a lapper. And when Chase first went to the whoops over there, going to that last stretch, the white flag was up. My guess is he saw that, then his eyes kind of went down more to the whoops, and then wasn't looking when he crossed.
Yeah, because it was a late checkered flag. Like if you watch the replay back, I mean, it's parallel to his shoulder by the time that checkered flag comes out. But good on him.
And to the flagger's credit, even though he probably has room temperature IQ, the flagger probably just saw the lapper and then didn't have an idea of how far ahead Chase had pulled a gap. Thought he probably had another minute and a half, but no, Chase had like a 35-second lead. Probably just looked down and goes, "Oh crap, there he is," and then just waved the checkers, because it was a late checkered. And it kind of made Chase look like an idiot, or just a try hard, or I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks it was a late checkered, because I think a lot of the media was like, "What is he doing?" Like it was obviously there was
he
like
just
no.
wanted to do another lap.
Maybe just a statement, kind of like lifting your leg on the tree, on the corner kind of deal. I don't know, but no, I think it was definitely just a late checkered. I don't know, but either way, it was pretty funny. And then you combine that with AP. You got one guy that's doing extra credit. You got another guy that's slacking off, chucking beer on the sideline. You want to talk about a yin and a yang? That's hilarious to me.
He's probably looking up like, where did Chase go? And like, oh, he's just doing another lap. Don't worry about it.
They're both getting their reps.
Yeah.
Okay, I tell you what. I got two questions to maybe three to close, but they'll be quick. Number one, with Kenny returning for outdoors, I would say 450 specifically. Is he a threat to win a moto? And on top of that, is anyone like a Cooper Webber and Eli Tomac a threat to win a moto on their return as well, or to be in the front? Or are they kind of be more, last end of the top 10, mid-pack? What are we thinking with these three big guys returning to the scene?
Yeah, you go first. What do you think, Alec?
I think they've made a name for themselves and a career for themselves for a reason. These guys win motos. These guys win championships. To say maybe their first round might be a slow comeback, just get some more gate drops under their belt. But man, once these guys get rolling, I mean, they're the top of our sport for a reason. So to say these guys, won't win a moto, I think might be a stretch. But then again, we don't know. These are some of the older guys in our class. But I'm excited. But I think we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, Carson, what you think?
I think it's probably going to take until Ironman to see some real hard battles up front where Chase isn't able to just pull away and rip, because he's in mid-season shape right now. He's been riding outdoors this whole time. But something about, I don't know what it is about Kenny that makes me feel like he can just come in and win. Like, I don't know. I feel like
the dude came off the couch last year and was the only guy for the whole season to lead a lap other than Jet Lawrence.
Yeah, I feel like Kenny might be in contention this next weekend. Cooper, little hesitant to say, oh, he's for sure a contender. I think he's got a podium. He's got a podium.
Well, now you've done it. You've doubted Cooper Webb, so he's going to win now. That's how it works. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules.
Maybe that's
Place
what I
your
was
bets.
trying to do. Yeah, I know he's an avid listener, and he's going to hear me say, I think he might have a podium in him, and now he's going to come out and win the thing. But yeah,
It's
I
like
feel like
1-1.
Kenny could win, dude. I don't know what it is about it, but I feel like Kenny could win.
Mhm.
Obviously, he's going over to 250 for Ironman, so he's not going to be there for that one. But
you
yeah,
texted me last week and you said you think Kenny would go 1-1 at Ironman on the 250.
I think he could do that too.
That would be
I think
wild.
so.
That would be sweet.
I'd be
Dude.
interested to see how he would compare with Deegan's pace, and also just how he would ride a 250 nowadays as well, because we already talked about this, just a different riding style. But I also do think I'm on the 450 side of things, even though I think it'll take at least one weekend for him to get back in full like race pace, at least for both motos. Maybe one he can throw it down real hard, but for both it's different. But I would just say, just on a one moto scale, I'm interested to see where Kenny relates to Chase, because everything about them is different. Even down to their workouts, like their whole workout structure, they use the same trainer and they train together, but even down to their weight training, it's all different. Their trainer has gone on and on about how Kenny is all fast twitch muscles and all super blitz, like for shorter duration, and then try to hang on, where Chase is a little bit less fast twitch muscles, a little bit slower to come back on or to get started per se, but can just keep burning. And like we've all talked about, when everyone else is about to puke up, a bunch of mud that they've sucked in from eating his roost the whole time, Chase can he's got another 30 minutes left in him when there's 2 to go. And he's got the durability along with it. So I'm interested to see how that kind of clashes, especially with the fact how we saw Kenny take off the couch last year when there was Jet. I'm interested to see, just on a one moto, comparison, when Kenny is kind of at his somewhat close to 100%, how he kind of stacks up with Chase, and how those two different, really just racers in general, but also just physical specimens compare to each other on this outdoor scale. I think it's going to be interesting to kind of see the two opposites kind of go against each other. But that's neither here nor there. But my next question is, the one guy we didn't touch on too much on the 250s, Tom Vial. Look, I'm going to say this as bluntly as possible. Okay. And it's a little bit hard.
Give us your take.
But it's been a choke fest from Vial outdoors. He was straight solid in Supercross. Okay. Like, if you would have told me on paper that, like, Deegan loses the Supercross championship to Tom Vial, a guy who's on his second year ever doing Supercross, but then, Vial's the one that is choking outdoors, and Deegan is killing it compared to these two. Like, I know Deegan was strong outdoors last year, but Vial, he's a 2-time MX2 world champion. He is kind of one of the favorites to win this team. I would say you got it backwards. Between these two. So and like I said, we've talked about Deegan having all these comeback rides. All I'm seeing from all this stuff about, how Deegan continues to lay the bike down in some areas, and he's battling back in these great comebacks. It's a fantastic rides by Deegan. By Deegan, but all I'm hearing is that Deegan's making mistakes and Vial is not there to capitalize every single time. And I think half the time he's laying it down, Vial's behind him, and somehow Vial isn't able to convert it and make it capitalize. So, look, the question is Vial going to be able to battle back to any extent with him being, let's see here, 55-ish points down to Deegan right now? Or is he just too French to win in the U.S.?
I don't know. I think something's got to go wrong with Deegan for Vial to make it. And, dude, you know what it could be?
He's too French.
Kenny. No. Ken Roczen comes in and pushes Deegan a little too hard on the 250. Deegan goes down. Vial gets second. Ken obviously wins.
Obviously.
And
The
goes
German
to
top
G1.
one.
Yeah, and Vial takes it because Ken doesn't matter for the championship. Vial's got to make a little bit of a comeback because he's going to get second, so he's not going to get quite 50 points. He needs a little more than 50. So, dude, I could
It would need to be
totally
a
see
Moto
that.
1 crash, and then Deegan would be out second Moto.
Right.
In this hypothetical scenario,
This hypothetical
on
scenario.
record, I don't want to play out. I don't want to.
No.
I want everyone to stay healthy for the record.
You want
But that would
my
be crazy.
short answer?
Huh?
Yeah.
My short answer is just no. I don't think. I mean, we've seen Tom Vial in front of him. We've seen Tom Vial behind him, and besides a couple motos where he hangs it out to the end, Deegan has passed him. I mean, that one time Vial just forgets to go inside and goes outside and gets passed by Deegan. Hello, it doesn't seem focused, and a lot of that might be the Supercross hangover too. I mean that is a strain on the emotions physically to come back, in 2 weeks through 3 weeks after winning a championship and get right back onto the track or right back onto the greats. It is tough. So I mean, I've never won a championship, but
to be fair to him, also, I think a lot of guys at Racer X have been fair in saying that, just pointing out the fact that, look, it's not like just because he's an MX2 world champion, it means he's great outdoors, but also he's racing on all these tracks for just a second time that a lot of these guys have gotten to race for half their life, right? So I do think that plays a factor into maybe 10% of the excuse.
Right.
10.
Well, wouldn't you say
maybe I could
Deegan?
bargain for 15.
Wouldn't you say Deegan's roughly around the same? I know he's American and goes to these tracks here and there, but even as an amateur, I mean, maybe Fox Raceway, maybe his local tracks in California.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean, to say he's been in Washougal, I mean, last year was his first year at Washougal, so he's roughly in the same boat. He might have more experience with soil types and the way American riders maybe ride or the way tracks break in. But I mean, they're both relatively in the same position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
That's true.
100%. Well, and I got one last thing. Hot take, but also if you think about it, it's really ain't. I mean, all the stats point to it, but just hot take. If it weren't for Deegan right now, Star Racing's 250 program is on fire. I mean, they're like burning it all. Like they're firing everybody. Like, because look at everyone else's results compared to Deegan. Jordan Smith is nowhere to be found. That's a guy that should be in the top 5, right? Daxton Bennick, we have no idea what's going on with him. I know there's some other variables there, but he's nowhere to be found, right? And then you've got what's his name?
Nick Romano. I'm
Romano.
scrolling down the list. I am finding them. They're just
Bennick's had a couple first turn crashes and stuff, and stuff that's kind of taken him out. But even then, I haven't seen. Well, didn't he podium early in the season? He got like a third, and then
he may have in that moto with when Levi won. That might have happened. I'm not 100% sure. You could be right on that, but either way, I would say, I mean, the fact that Max Anstey was able to come in and do just about as good or better than Jordan Smith, there's something going on there. And I will say part of it is that people are pointing out is the other factory rides in regards to delivering the adequate horsepower on the 250 platform in particular have finally caught up. I mean, for the last however many years, that 250 Yamaha has had the best power delivery of anything. I mean, you would literally watch them go up horsepower hill, and anyone on a Yamaha could get about a half second gap just going uphill from having the power advantage. And it doesn't seem to be as big of an advantage anymore. It just seems to be like negligent per se, or just very, very marginal is probably the better word. And it just comes down to Deegan is really killing it, but it seems like the other teams have caught up with their factory rides and getting it back up there. And maybe Yamaha have been a little bit too quick to pull the trigger on some of these younger guys or even with Jordan Smith for whatever reason. Like, I don't know. It seems that the bike isn't necessarily making the rider as much because we've seen Yamaha sign an entire football team's worth of riders. And I think just thinking that, okay, we'll just hit with at least 2 of these guys and the bike will carry the rest in the top 10s. Like, it's interesting. But yeah, I'm a firm believer that if it weren't for Deegan right now, Star Racing Yamaha's on fire because without him, they ain't got anybody up in there.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan Smith is the only other guy that's even in the top 10 for Yamaha.
Yeah, and he's 10.
Yeah, he's got 165 points to his name. So literally less than half of what Deegan's got. That's a wild stat right there. Your nearest competitor in your own team that's got a pretty, I would say, for as big as they are, a star-studded lineup, or at least high potential lineup. Your nearest guy is not even half the points of your best guy. That's kind of unprecedented.
Compared to Hymus, I know Hymus was out second moto, but are they? Is it kind of the same gap? Okay,
similar. Yeah, they're within 4 points of each other. Okay. They're close.
Yeah, Shimoda
better for that. That's better for HRC than it is for Star.
Yeah, and Shimoda's still not necessarily like he was not present in the championship fight early on as per with him, but he's kind of got that late season like confidence and just that emergence into all of a sudden he's actually doing well now a little bit earlier than he has in past seasons. So I still don't think he's within reach of the championship by any means unless something crazy happens, but it's at least nice to see that he's awakening a little earlier than just like the last 2 rounds. That's good.
Yeah. I would wonder what that does for bike sales because it kind of makes it look like you got to be Deegan to ride the Yamaha well.
Like I said, this is a hot take here.
Yeah,
like low key.
Well, if Deegan's your favorite rider, you're buy a Yamaha.
Yamaha.
I grew up on Honda, so that's what I stuck with. But for a while, Chase was, always been my favorite rider, and Chase was on the Honda, and I liked the way that Alpine Stars kit looked with the Honda, and I was like, look, I want to look like that guy. And I think that's kind of, people fall in love with their favorite riders, and then they want to be like them. So I wouldn't say obviously wins helps that because then you're on TV more. Because it's
3 years ago, I watched Mookie come out in Dallas in person with the all iced out, all white outfit with the gold chrome helmet, and I said, I all of a sudden want a Husqvarna. Do I have one? No. But I was like, if I was to get one, it'd be that one
with the same seven gear set.
Oh, bro, it's clean.
The showy helmet. Yeah,
dude, and that was a traumatic night too because he was leading one of the Triple Crown races, and Anderson was on that whole stretch of like 5 races where he just decided to unleash his inner demon on everybody. Yeah, and I was right next to that turn where he took out Malcolm, and it was really funny to watch Malcolm shove Anderson out of the way to get back to his bike. But dude, I had never like come close to like throwing a hat down watching a race before. Little did I know that 2 years later I would be doing the same thing at this year's Dallas race. Karsten witnessed that in person. But yeah, there's something about Dallas. Malcolm's got some kind of like Indian burial ground over there that he has his trailer parked on. So we got to fix that. But he's got great lap times there. Just bad luck.
Dude, Malcolm's fast. But how about Faulkner at Arlington?
Dude, that was the same race that Mookie got taken out. That's when he collided with Jet. And then 2 years later, that is okay. Faulkner takes the cake with bad luck at Dallas.
Because
we
were right at the end of the whoops.
Bro,
I was right at the end of the whoops. That rhythm straight to the left, coming right at it, where he hit his back and like.
Dude, I think
it was the rhythm section. It was that rhythm section, and Karsten and I were right next to each other in the row, and basically, I just remember like he was maintaining that like 1.5 to 2 second gap with Deegan behind him all race, and it was getting to like the last 2 minutes. Right I think it was just at 2 to go. Correct me if I'm wrong. But all I remember seeing was I was watching the timing board when they were going over the finish line, and I saw that Deegan made a slight mistake, and that the like coming out of one of the bowl turns, I think, or going into the sand section, and the gap went to 3 seconds. And I looked up to see where Deegan was when he was entering the sand rollers, and I just watched Austin go into that rhythm section. I look back at Deegan going around that U-turn with the sand rollers.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, I see Austin's bike off to the side, and I just see Austin like up there. And I'm like, you're not.
Man.
I've never been in a sport where I was like, he's like in my inner thoughts, like he's gonna die. Like, and he
I
launched,
thought he died.
Yeah, he launched on one side of the stadium and landed on our side 20 yards from us.
Yeah.
And I just was just like speechless for once, and just was like, because honestly was like I've never witnessed someone pass away in a sporting event. I thought I just did. It was wild.
It was crazy.
It was me, my little sister, and my girlfriend. Man, we were. It was tough to watch. But I'm glad he's healing up. I'm glad he got his brain surgery went well, and I'm glad that he's on the road to recovery. And I hope we get to see him.
His interview talking about that. His interview talking about that when he said it was like a blessing in disguise, that if it weren't for that, like he believes truly that it was like God's plan for that crash to happen, so that he could discover that life-threatening deal in his brain with the whole blood vessel thing and everything. Like crazy interview on, I think, Gypsy Tales. I believe he talked about it recently.
Yeah.
Highly encourage anyone listening, go watch that. It's an incredible story. But also just insane. The dude's got like all like half a container's worth of staples in his head from that whole deal. But I'm all of a sudden now, after seeing that whole deal, like a big time Austin Forkner fan for the rest of 2025.
Kid's got heart.
Back.
He's got heart.
Mm-hmm.
Well, any closing hot takes or questions before we wrap this one up, guys?
No, man. I'm excited for the rest of this year. I can't wait for playoffs. I'm going to Vegas. So
you're going to the Vegas round?
Yeah. So that'll be fun, man. I'm stoked. So
Carson and I and the boys are going to the Texas round, so we're excited about that. We're gonna sweat our butts off because I just found out that it starts at 2.
Oh,
so
all right.
Wish us luck.
Hot as balls.
Yep. But hey, at least tailgating in the morning will be brisk.
There you go.
You know, won't be that bad.
Yeah. Beer's cold.
Yeah, that's it's going to be interesting. I'm going to have to bring out the bucket hat for sure.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you boy going to fry. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, Alec, thank you so much for joining us, dude. This is awesome. Hope to have you on again soon.
Me. Yes,
no, anytime, dude. This is awesome. And Carson helped me stay on track, steering the ship. Thank you. I know I derailed us at least twice, but
no problem.
It takes
a let man rip. Okay.
You know what? Sometimes I just got to go on a little bit of a detour.
Yeah,
but somehow I'm going to tie it back in.
Maybe full circle, baby.
We're here to talk. That's all it is.
Exactly. But yeah, thank you guys for hopping on, and for those of y'all listening, thank y'all for tuning in. Let us know any of your hot takes and the polls we put up, or any of the comments or whatnot. Let us know what else you want to hear from us in regards to the moto or motorsports world. We'll be back talking about a little bit of F1, maybe a little bit of IndyCar as well soon, but we're definitely going to keep covering the Super Motocross series as it continues to develop. And we'll see you guys next time. I appreciate you guys listening. Peace out.
Peace.